Hey there, and welcome to my channel. My name is Crafty Kathy, and I want to thank you so much for stopping in and crafting and spending a little time with me today. Spring is my most favorite time of year, and I want to share with you my top 25 Easter and spring DIYs from last season. I hope you enjoy. I have this large plastic egg that I got from Dollar Tree last year, and I was thumbing through Pinterest and I got the most amazing idea, and I thought, I can do this on a larger scale. So I'm going to use Home Decor's color called Oatmeal. It's kind of a khaki color, and I gave this egg 2 coats of that color. And when it dried, I went to my rice paper and I chose this beautiful picture of a little boy hugging an Easter bunny. It is the most precious picture. This rice paper was really easy to work with. I just put down a little bit of the Mod Podge and then it stuck. And I will leave in the description box below the lady's name that I got this from. But I also have other places where you can get this it's decoupage paper or rice paper is what it's called. And I have some coupons. All of this will be in the description box. So if you want anything that you see in this video, it will be in the description box. Now, if you have anything that you feel like you're getting wrinkles, you can use the saran wrap just like you do with the napkins. It's the exact same process. And then I start from the middle part and go down and outward whenever I am putting my Mod Podge on. So I got out my air dry clay and I am going to roll it around, put a little cornstarch on this little mold that I got. And this is just a cheap mold from Amazon. Okay, so what you do is you get your air dry clay and you push it down in whichever design that you want. And I use my brayer to help me, my little roller there. And then I just cut off any excess that's not the pattern itself. So once I figured out how I wanted my design to go, I just put a little bit of that Starbond glue on the back of each piece of this mold and just stuck it down in the pattern that I wanted. Then I took some of those gems that come from the Dollar Tree. I use these a lot and I really like them. They peel off in one long strip and they're so easy. And I'm trying to cover up where that egg clicks together in the middle because it's not ever going to open again. I actually put a little bit of glue inside the seal there so it wouldn't. And I just put these little gems all the way around this egg. And it's so beautiful, guys. Like, this camera doesn't even do this egg justice. It's really pretty. And it's from the Dollar Tree. Hello. So in the spirit of all things Dollar Tree, I figured that I'd use one of their candlesticks. I got my white Adirondack and I gave this candlestick 2 full coats. Then I took my little water bottle that's one of those misters and I misted the whole candlestick so it would be slightly wet. And then I used my antique wax all over this candlestick and then I wiped it off. Then I used my Debbie's DIY white wax and I put it all over that scrolly design. Now this is the next day when it was absolutely dry and molded and hard. And then I just used a little bit of water and antique wax, and this time I did mix it. I didn't just squirt it on. You can see it in the little palette thingy there. And at first I went kind of lightly. I used a distressing brush and just kind of distressed it on. And then when I saw how pretty it was, I started going a little bit darker with it. And meaning just using a little bit more of the wax instead of kind of wiping it off. And guys, man, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And right here's where we get into the serious cuteness. I took some of that white Adirondack and put it on that distressing brush and went over that brown antique wax. And you want to talk about beautiful, guys. I mean, I want to keep this. It's so pretty, but I know that it will be sold on day one of going in that booth. And then I took this stinky old grass. I don't know if any of y'all have ever bought this grass from Dollar Tree, but mine stunk. It smelled like a rotten skunk went in there and just sprayed all over it. And then peed all over it. Oh, you talk about raunchy stink. It smelled like a wet dog. It was just, I don't even know what it smelled like. It was so bad. I can't describe it. But I put just a couple little sprigs on each side because we're going to set our egg in it. And I hope and pray to the good Lord that when somebody picks this egg up, they don't go, oh dear, what died on this egg? So one of my sweet subscribers sent me this rickrack, and it was last year. I don't even remember who sent me it. It's been so long. And it's so pretty, and I'm going to use this to wrap it around the very top part of my little candlestick just to give it a little something to make it a little extra. And guess what? I'm going to use one of my little Totally Dazzled pieces, and this is a little ribbon or a little bow, if you will, and we're going to put that on there, and this baby is done. I hope you guys like it. I forgot I did add one single solitaire little flower up at the top because I thought it just gave it a little something something, and now it's done. Then for my very last DIY, what I'm going to do is take two little sublimated prints that I have. I made them like maybe 3x5, 4x6, that size. And I painted two pieces of wood, just gave it one coat, and then I gave it 2 coats of polyacrylic. Now, we are going to do some sublimation on wood. This is the first time I have sublimated on wood myself, and I didn't read the directions and I made it a little bit too hot, but next time we're going to know the exact temperature. It still turned out fine, but next time we can go a little bit lower and get a better result. So I went 400 degrees for 60 seconds, and I was supposed to have went 385 degrees for about 20 seconds. And when I tried to pull the paper back up, it was a little hot and it stuck in one spot, but that's okay because I go for the vintage rustic look anyways, and it actually looked like it was supposed to be that way. But now we know, and you see me trying to get this piece of paper up where it stuck just a little, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Here's a quick view of the two pieces. The one is there beside that big egg, and it's the little bunny rabbit with the tuxedo on, and the other one is just like a French flower. So our very, very last DIY, look at this gorgeous vase that I got from Goodwill, and it is a French vase that had French writing on it. I thought it was so pretty, but I'm not really into that color, so we're going to put this in our booth, and it's just going to be to stage stuff. The very first thing that I did is gave this one coat of white Adirondack. Then I used the Waverly color called Lagoon. But first I took some wax and went all over the high points of this vase so that the paint would come off easily. And this was a beautiful color, this Lagoon, but it's not the same color of blue that I did in the rest of the vignette. And I don't know why I didn't think about that until after I was finished with it. Then to get the paint off, what I did was used my little Cricut tool, and you just kind of scrape and the paint very easily comes off. At this point, I just remember I was putting on the Debbie's DIY white wax all over it and thinking that maybe it would lighten this blue color up enough to where it would match the rest of the vignette, but of course it didn't. So after I put that on and then wiped it off,
I added the florals that I had got from Walmart the other day, and they're gorgeous, by the way. And these florals looked so pretty with this color that I had chosen for this vase. But then I actually decided to change it to that same color that I had painted the picture frame from earlier, and it was a mixture of the Nantucket blue and the glacier blue that I used to get that same blue color that was the rest of the vignette. And this vase still turned out beautiful, but I really loved that first color. I just couldn't use it because it didn't match with the rest of my vignette. I bought this picture from a thrift store for $5, and it's a 20 by 30. Now, I want to make something out of it, but look how dirty and dingy this thing is. So the first thing that I wanted to do is get it cleaned up, and I gave it 2 coats of my Rust-Oleum 2x spray paint in the matte white. And Kitty Nala decided to take a break from terrorizing my chickens for a minute. Now back inside, while my spray paint is drying, I cut me a pretty good size of drop cloth off, just regular old drop cloth, and I'm going to measure out the backing of that picture frame. The opening that the picture that I need is a 12 by 15, and I just cut a random piece. I didn't even measure this. I just kind of made sure it's going to wrap around it the way I need it to. And I just glued all 4 corners on the back. I just used that piece of cardboard that came in the frame in the first place. I'm not really paying special attention to make sure that this looks beautiful on the back because number 1, this is covered up, and number 2, it's just going in my house anyway. Now there was just a little bit of extra overhang, and just to make it easier to put back in the frame, I just kind of cut that off because all you need is just it wrapped around, and you got to wrap around it pretty tightly to make sure that the front is taut and looks good. Now, after I got it cleaned up and spray painted 2 times, look how pretty this is. It turned out so nice. So I flipped it over to the back, and I'm just going to lay that piece right back down in there. I'm not putting the glass back in there because that's the style. We don't want the glass in there. And then I put that last backing piece on, and it was screwed on, so I just screw everything back in the way that it's supposed to go. I had so many people interested in my sublimation prints last week. I'm going to show you another way to use it. Look at this beautiful bunny picture. All right, what you're going to do is just lay your picture down face first. You're going to take your heat-resistant tape. Now, last time I did this, I forgot to put down my tape, so you don't necessarily have to have the tape. You just have to be careful that you don't move your picture around while you are using your press. So you put your tape down and you put your wax paper down. Then you just press it on 400 degrees for 60 seconds. Now, a regular household iron will not get hot enough to heat a sublimated print up, so I just want to let you guys know that. I definitely don't want anybody to go to my Etsy store and buy a print and then be mad at me because I forgot to tell you. But these are available in my Etsy store at Kathy's Crafty Boutique. And whoa, look how beautiful this turned out. I'm doing a happy dance. I always get so excited when I pull that iron back and see how beautiful the sublimation is. So I take my Waverly's Antique Wax, and I'm just going to distress this a little bit because it was just too stark white for me. I like the vintage look, and I want it to have a little bit of distressing to it. I'm a farmhouse girl most of the time, so I just went around, and this had these beautiful like little divots all in the frame. So the high points just grabbed that antique wax so beautifully, and it distressed so perfectly, guys. It was gorgeous. And then after it's dry, I always go back over it with the white paint again, very, very lightly. I use my white Adirondack by Home Decor, and I just go over it, like I said, very lightly. And I just like the way it looks. It gives it a more naturally worn appearance.
I'm going to take 4 of these little half beads that I have, and I just painted them with the antique wax and just lightly wiped it off with a baby wipe. And we're going to take those and put those one on each corner of the picture because I just thought it gave it a little something extra, and I'm kind of extra. Once I get started on my projects, I keep thinking, but what if I do this? Well, what if I do that? And I keep adding and adding. But wait till you see the very last thing I add on this. I love to use the Totally Dazzled jewels to finish up a lot of my projects, and this is no different. It gives it a 3D effect, and I have them linked down below just in case you guys want some. I really enjoy using them because they're not expensive at all, and they make everything pop. Now, anything that I mention in my videos, I always put in the description box below. That way, it will be super easy for you guys to find it.
I missed you so bad, won't you come back to me? I've got you in my head, you're all that I see. I've lost all my chances.
Let me know what you think about this sublimation project and the print. I think it's beautiful. For me, that little bow in her hair just does it. I think that's the cutest thing ever. I picked up this floral arrangement pot, I guess you could call it, from the Goodwill. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but I really like the color that's already on it, and I like the way that it looks crackled, and it already looks distressed, but there was a couple little spots that I just needed to touch up, and it's brown, so I just used my Waverly's antique wax to touch those little spots up. Now, since it's springtime and we're wanting to do light, you know, this is kind of dark for spring. So what we're going to do is use the DIY wax, the Debbie's DIY wax, and we're going to lighten it down and soften it up. And what I did was just brushed this all over, and it doesn't take much of this wax. It takes very, very little, and it's so buttery and soft. It goes on great. I'll leave it on for about 1 hour. Leave it alone, and then I just use like a napkin and wipe most of it off, and it just gives it a softer tone and just very, I don't know, feminine, Victorian, vintage, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. And also, I'm going to use a gorgeous transfer on this that has yellow in it, so I thought it would really bring that out. So as you see, I'm just lightly wiping it off. You don't have to go hard with it, but if there's a spot that you want a little bit more of the wax off, I just kind of wet the end of my paper towel. No big deal. This stuff is super easy to use. I take my transfer, and it's my little birdies from last week. Do you remember that I told you in my IOD transfers, I had this long line of birds. There was like 10 or 12 birds, and there's 2 pages of it. So I only needed a couple birds to go on this, and I needed that yellow in that flower pot to go with the yellow on my little birdie's breast. And I thought, man, this is going to look good. So I laid it down, and you get it exactly where you want it. And if you need to scoot it around a little bit, it's not going to stick like the Dollar Tree ones do. You know, right as soon as you lay them down, you're done. But with this one, it's not really like that. You lay it down, get it where you want it, and then you get your little scratchy tool, I call it. It's a little tool that they send you, and you're just going to kind of scrape it, and your beautiful birds are going to come off on there. I have found if you hold the edge of the transfer up while you're scraping that area, it helps it to stick so much better, and it just makes it easier. The sisters that own the company say it's like riding a wave, and I mean, that's the only way that I can describe it. That is what it feels like, and it makes it so much easier to come off the way that you want it to. Then you just take that little piece of plastic that the transfer was on, and you rub it around like it's called burnishing it. And it's like basically just pushing it down and making sure that it's going to stick real good. Now, this is what it looks like so far. I've got some eucalyptus that comes from Walmart, the 97-cent kind. And I also had like a garland of eucalyptus that I got from, I want to say it was maybe like TJ Maxx or somewhere like that. But anyways, I just cut it up into pieces, and I'm going to use that too. I always put my tallest pieces in the middle, and then I try to put on one side, whatever I put on one side, I try to put the exact same thing on the other side.
Like, see, for example, this piece of eucalyptus kind of flops over, like falls over, and that's what I want. And so I did that on the exact opposite side and try to match the sizes so that they look, you know, what's the word? So they look the same. I may be from Tennessee, but I do know what proportional means, and that's what I meant to say, okay, I promise. Now, I just have a few little twigs, and honestly, I don't know what these are. They just came from the thrift store, and then the one that I'm cutting right now came from the Dollar Tree, and I just kind of add a little bit here and there. If it's a taller stem, I put it in the middle. I always like to try to put about 3 different types of greenery in my plants because to me, I think it looks better. It looks more natural. Now, this one was called a silver green eucalyptus. It was from the Dollar Tree. It don't matter because I decided not to use it anyway. I didn't really like it that much. And at this point, I was trying to figure out what I was going to put in here. Now, everything else that I did today is lavender because lavender is going to be the color of spring. I'm just telling y'all, all the magazines and decor stuff is saying lavender this and lavender that, which I like it. It's great. So we're going to go with lavender too. So now I'm going to try to rock the boat just a little bit. I'm going to use some marigolds that I got from the Dollar Tree in the fall. And it's kind of a cream color. So I'm just going to add a couple of those in there. I didn't want to do white. I'm more of a cream color kind of girl instead of a stark white. So I just put about 4 of those in there. And I put one on one side and one on that opposite side. I just kind of eyeball it, see what I think's going to look good. And then off camera, once I kept looking at this thing and thinking, okay, I'm just going to do it. And so I had 4 little pieces of lavender that I stuck in here, and you will see them in the pictures, but I didn't record myself doing it, and I'm sorry. But you can see I didn't really stick them in any big form or fashion. They're just 1, 2, 3, 4 across the middle. And hey, guys, this is adorable. And it was very easy and quick. And honestly, I know that there was nothing purple on the front of this flower vase or anything like that, but I don't like my stuff to be matchy-matchy. To me, and this is my personal preference, I find if you add a little bit of variation, to me, I think it looks better. All right, let's go into number 3. I've got 4 flower pots that I got from Discovery Outlet for just $2.99, and I had previously painted them. And I made these little stencils off of my Cricut. I just used the stencil vinyl, and I always try to go with easy things like just the outline of a bunny, because if I go with small intricate details, the Cricut don't like me very much when I do that. But now with my one little bunny, he does have little flowers all in him, and he turned out cute. Now, I had previously painted these pots with baking soda and chalk paint. I do 1-to-1 ratio. And what I mean by that is if I use 1 teaspoon of paint, I use 1 teaspoon of baking soda, the exact same equivalents. And I just kind of pack it on with my brush. But since I had already painted those, I just wanted to let you know. And so we're going to put our little stencil on. And I wanted them to go in like on the biggest one and the 3rd biggest one, because these go in size, like they step down in sizes. So on the blue pot, I put just the outline of the bunny. And since the paint was so thick and it was so textured, it was really hard to get this vinyl to stick to it. It didn't want to stick to it, and I thought, oh, that's not very good, because you know, if you've ever done a stencil before, you definitely want the edges of your stencil to be stuck down good, because if not, that paint will sneak down under there, and before you know it, it will bite you in the bottom, and you'll be like, oh no, I didn't see it coming. So I just pushed down really, really well all around the edges of my little bunny rabbit. And I thought, you gonna work, buddy. I'm gonna make you work. And so I took my other little bunny rabbit, the one that had all the little flowers on him. And he is adorable. And I'm kind of surprised that he turned out as cute as he did. So I put him on my little pink pot. I'm just going to use the Waverly Ink Chalk Paint, which is their black color, and I got a stencil brush from Jamie Ray Vintage, and so I'm going to try this stencil brush out, and all you do is pounce. Now, since these didn't want to stick too good, I was kind of careful around the edges. I took my time to make sure that I didn't let that thing bleed underneath there, because there's nothing worse than pulling off a stencil and being all excited and it just looks like a big old blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's nothing. It's shapeless. And you're just like, really? It just breaks my heart every time. But look how cute he turned out. Oh, it makes me want another little bunny rabbit for just a brief moment. But you know what? I have my little pug, Sabby. I have a cat that came from the Humane Society, and she just gives all kinds of terror to my poor chickens, my little hens, my baby girls. And I'm just telling y'all right now, she's going to be something else this spring, because I have rose bushes all around my pool, and we probably had about 10 birds with nests out here, and we got to watch the babies hatch. We even got to watch them fly away from their mamas, and look how beautiful this is. But anyways, I just know she's going to be a terror. Now, I was real simple at the way that I decorated these. I put some tissue paper down inside of them, and the reason why I did that is so I wouldn't have to use so much of the moss and the Spanish grass. I used a combination of both, by the way. Now, I get mine from the Dollar Tree, which reminds me, if you'll look at the bottom right of the screen, I took a couple of those small eggs from the Dollar Tree, and I used my baking soda and paint mixture because they had big specks of glitter on them, and I wanted to cover it up, so I just painted them with that. Now, I've got this little bird that I got at Dollar General last year, and I painted her white and distressed her, and I'm going to set her on top of one of the nests. I even stuck 1 or 2 little twigs in there to make the nest look authentic. I stuck the bird in top of the flower pot that did not have the stencil on it, and then I took the other one that didn't have the stencil on it, which is the cream colored one, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, except for on the top of it, I'm going to place one of the little bunny rabbits that comes from the Dollar Tree, and I also painted him that same way with the chalk paint and baking soda. Now, the 2 pots that do have the stencils on them, I wanted them to be just a little bit different. And I tried out a couple flowers, but of course I went back to the lavender. So I just put 1 or 2 little sprigs of some type of greenery in there and 1 or 2 little sprigs of the lavender. And I literally pulled the lavender off of the little stem. It's the lavender that comes from the Walmart, the 97-cent lavender. I pulled it off the stem and popped a couple of them in each of those little pots, and these are adorable. And I've got this beautiful little strand of pearls. Remember when I told you that when I start on a DIY, I just keep on and can't stop? Okay, well, this was one of those. I just cut the pearls in just a couple of small pieces and kind of wrapped it around the front of each pot. One of my sweet subscribers sent me these pearls, and they had these perfect little sticky backs on them, which made them easy to just stick to the cup. I started sticking my little eggs in a couple of these pots and realized I did not put specks on my eggs, so I'm going to have to do that. But first, I took a little bit of jute twine and just tied it around twice around the top and just tied a double knot up there, nothing special, and I just kind of made like the ends of it kind of frilly and pretty. Then I got some black paint on the end of that stencil brush, only because it was already wet and I didn't want to get another one dirty. And I just kind of flicked it off of my finger, and that's how I get my little specks on my eggs. And then I added those to my pots.
Young, and we didn't want to be exposed. Even though it was cold, we were never wearing proper clothes. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, smoking cigarettes behind the school. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, you know. I still think about what we had
All right, our last DIY is a really quick one. I have this little bunny, and this bunny was in my video last week. He's just a little paper mache bunny that I got from a thrift store. He actually still has the tag on him, and I use him when I'm staging my pictures. So I wanted to do something with him because he looks a little sick to me. I don't know, and he's got this big hole in the side of his bottom. Not really a big hole, but just like a little, you know, cut, a little scratch. We got to fix him up. So I paid $2.99 for him. I took him outside and I gave him 2 coats of the satin spray paint. It's the Rust-Oleum 2 times, and it was called Smoky Beige. He won't be for selling my booth, but I'm just going to updo him so he don't look so sickly on us. So what I did was take that thin ribbon, that's the lace from Dollar Tree. It's my favorite ribbon that they have. And I'm simply going to wrap it around his neck one time and glue it off. Then I took 4 of those little sprigs of lavender. I laid them together, and I'm just going to tie a knot around those with my jute twine. And then I glued that right at the side of his neck. Then I took one of the little roses from Solar Wood Flowers, and I just left it the color that it is because it's kind of like a cream color. I snipped the end of it off, and we're just going to glue it right on the end where all the lavender meet. And one of my precious subscribers had sent me these little keys last year from Tim Holtz, and it says secret on it. And the reason why I picked that one that said secret on it is because it's like a secret that he's the Easter Bunny. And I don't know, I just thought that was cute. I pay attention to every single detail, y'all. I cannot help myself. So all I did was just tie that around his little neck. And I got this tray at the thrift store. I think it was like $2.99. I took it outside and gave it a coat of the matte white by Rust-Oleum 2 times. Of course, if you've been around my channel long, you know that that's my favorite spray paint is the Rust-Oleum 2 times. And I'm just going to take some of the mineral colored chalk paint by Waverly and just run it over it real quick and distress it. At my Walmart, the shelves are like completely bare in the spray paint area, and I'm just wondering, across the country, is it like that everywhere? You guys leave me a comment and let me know if you've noticed that your Walmarts are really running low on spray paint. I don't understand why that is. Okay, the outside of this has some really pretty leaves, and I just want to go over that really good with the distressing brush so you can see that beautiful detail. Then here's where I took that garland that I got from TJ Maxx or wherever it was and just kind of cut it up. I think it was probably about 5 feet long when it started, or 4 feet. I cut it into a couple of bigger pieces, and my plan for this bunny is really simple. I also have different types of greenery because, you know, I told you I like to use all different types of greenery when I'm doing anything floral. So what we're going to do is get our little tray, and we're just going to we're going to set our bunny in there first, and then we're going to just start setting this greenery all around him. I got this idea off of Pinterest. I thought it was so cute. It was a little bunny in a round tray, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to stick my bunny in this tray, and we're going to make it work, and it's going to look good. And I just think it's adorable, and it's just cute as it can be. So I had no rhyme or reason where I put the twigs. I just laid them kind of everywhere. And then I took some of those, that beautiful lavender that I've been talking about all through my video, and I just added some of the sprigs here and there. I pulled the actual sprigs off and laid that down everywhere. I'm really glad that lavender is going to be a very popular color this spring because I think it's beautiful and I love it in everything. I added some of that Spanish moss kind of here and there to make it look like he's really standing in a little field full of flowers and stuff. And I started seeing this little guy really coming to life. I took a little bit of the Waverly's antiquing wax and just kind of antiqued him up, just kind of here and there all over his little body. Then I took 2 ribbons. I took that little thin white lace one that I like so much from the Dollar Tree and laid it on top of one that looks like, kind of like burlap. And I just tied it in a figure-8 style bow, and I'm going to put this right in the front center of the little basket. I'm going to add another one of these little totally dazzled jewels, and it's a ribbon, and I'm going to stick it right in the center of my ribbon. Then, as a final step, I just added some of those little eggs and a couple of those little roses from the solar wood flowers, and this baby's done, and I think it's cute as a bug. Well, cute as a bunny. Y'all let me know what you think about this one. Hey, if you stuck around through this whole video, I just want to thank you. I appreciate each and every one of y'all so very much. I am going to be using Waverly's ink, which is their black chalk paint. This plate that I got, it's actually a charger from Dollar Tree, and this beautiful He Is Risen stencil. I got that off of Amazon, and it is linked in my Amazon store. So I just used like a little dabber, I guess you call it, and it was kind of tough holding this thing down to get it just right around the edges because I didn't want to smear anything. And all you do is just dab. I'm one of the ones that do my stencils. I don't go in circles. I just dab it straight up and down because I think it makes it look a little more distressed, and I think it looks better. So I went all the way around the parts that says He Is Risen. I also went over the verse, Matthew 28:6, and it was a lot easier and quicker to go over because I didn't have to fight over those sides of the charger. Now there was a couple little places that I needed to touch up, but it was no big deal. I used the end of one of those little embossing tools that had a point on it, almost like a pen. And I just put a baby wipe on the end of it, and it wiped right off. This charger is actually my favorite charger from the ones at Dollar Tree. I think it's a beautiful color, and what a beautiful message for this Easter season. There was a couple of areas to touch up with the paint, and I just took that baby wipe off and used that same little sharp point on the embosser to fix that up. Then I just took some beautiful lace ribbon that I had got from a thrift store, and I'm just going to make a very simple bow. All I did was just wrapped it around in a circle formation, glued it down, and made another in the same circle formation that was just a little bit smaller. And you just glue the ends of it together, and you pinch it together in the middle, and it makes a beautiful little bow. I grabbed another longer piece that I'm going to use for the tails, and then I just grabbed a zip tie, a white zip tie, and that is how I'm going to pull all this together. You put the zip tie in the middle, and you just pull it, and it makes your perfect bow. But when I laid this bow down, it just didn't look perky enough to me. It didn't look like it's going to be enough of a bow. Now, I'm not a big bow person, and I don't like a lot of gaudy bows on my stuff. And I wanted it to be small, but it was just almost too minimal, you know? So I just chopped the ends of it off and started cutting it up everywhere to kind of make like a shabby bow or almost like a messy bow, and see if that would make any difference because it would make it a little bit poofier. And I'm just going to use the simple eucalyptus that comes from the Walmart. All I did was take my 2 stems that I'm going to use and wrapped my jute twine around it a couple of times and just glued that off. And I actually put a little dab of glue at the top of my plate. I keep calling it a plate, it's a charger. At the top of my charger, and then I put my jute down to it. So if I want to pull it up, it's going to be easy. So let's see what this messy, shabby bow looks like on here. I'm just going to stick it right in the middle and see what I'm going to... No, I still didn't like it. So I ran outside and made one real quick with that Mod Podge Stiffy. Now, these bows do not have any type of wire in them,
but when you use that product called Mod Podge Stiffy, it makes it stiff. And I stuck a little solar wood flower in there, and that one was perfect. I have this little lamb that I think is adorable. I bought it off of Etsy. It's just a little wood lamb. And, you know, Jesus is the Lamb of God. And so I thought, you know, this charger needs a little something else. So I just painted my little lamb white, of course, because white is the color of holiness and purity. And so I just painted it white with one little coat, and I'm just going to glue it down to the side of my sign. And then I did take a Sharpie, a black Sharpie, and kind of outline my little lamb so it would, you know, stand out a little bit more. But I think this is gorgeous and so easy and simple and beautiful for the Easter season.
Saw you paint a picture of a face that wasn't even close to mine. I know I shouldn't be in love.
This next one is some little wood tags that I got from Woodpecker Crafts, and I'm just going to show you some quick little ways that I like to sublimate these. I didn't really make any DIYs out of these per se. I just made little tags so that when I sell something in my booth, I can just use my little crocodile and pop a hole in the top of it and use it as a sweet little tag, and it's a nice little gift to give people. I think it just kind of, you know, brings stuff up a notch. What you just saw me do was use my little laminating plastic sheets to the bunny. And the first one that I did was I just literally pulled an image up off of Google. It's with some flowers, and it's like a French saying. It's really pretty. Anything flowery is, you know, pretty. And it says carte postale. And I thought that was cool. So I put this on my little bunny, and we're just going to sublimate that on there. But I wish I would have painted my bunny before I did that. I always get in a hurry and forget to paint them when I'm sublimating. What is wrong with me? It still turned out beautiful, and what a sweet little gift to give someone when they buy something from the booth. Look how sweet this is. And in my Etsy shop, if you ever want to buy something that is a smaller type sublimation like this, you just need to let me know. There is a tab on there where you can get a couple of the smaller pieces for the same price, but you just get several more smaller ones. Okay, so I've got my little circle round here, and I'm painting one white, and I painted the other one with a color called Irish, which is that green color. So see, I did remember to paint these before I sublimated, so I don't know, you know, it's just kind of one of them things. I went to my Cricut, and I'm going to use my vinyl stencil, or is it stencil vinyl? I don't remember how you say it, but anyways, it's the Oracle brand, and I just printed out the words, be still and know. You know, that's from the Bible, be still and know that I'm the Lord. So what you do is you actually weed the middle part, and then you still put it down with your little tape if you need to. And I just used the black ink Waverly color. I can't talk, but I used that and dabbed it on there, and that's what I made the stencil with. My goodness. And on the green one, I'm taking this beautiful little French bunny image, and I'm going to sublimate that on the front. And I absolutely love the way that this one turned out. I think that green is very breathtaking. And with this bunny, I took and copied a page out of the Redback hymnal and just sublimated it on there. And I think it turned out really sweet and vintage looking. In the very last design, I just took a wood circle and I sublimated another page from the Redback hymnal. I just thought these were sweet and wanted to show you. So now my next project is going to be these decor transfers, and I'm just going to take a little bit of drop cloth, and I'm going to cut out about a 5x7. No, actually, I would say it's about a 3x5 square inch. And you know, when you start cutting your drop cloth, you can just rip it, and it rips down straight, and it gives you those little scraggly sides, which is what I love, absolutely love.
And I'm just going to take and use my little Prima redesign transfers that has the bunny, and I'm going to put him in the middle of that. Sorry that I'm going a little quick through this video, but just for the sake of time, I didn't want it to drag on and you guys be bored. So they send you the little object that you scrape it with, and pretty much all you do is scrape it on your image. It's pretty easy to go down to fabrics, and I'm going to place it on this 5x7 frame that I actually got at the Dollar Tree, and it is the cutest little frame. And I'm going to keep it black because I thought that color would pop. And then it's just got a little hook at the top where you can stick your picture. From the same transfer, I took these two little ferns and I'm going to put them on the sides of my bunny because he just seemed kind of plain, you know, without anything else. So I put those on there too with my little tool. Sometimes I find it easier to use literally a fingernail or my Cricut tool, just whatever you can find to get your transfer off. And when I clipped my bunny on, I felt like it was still a little plain, so I went to my stash and I got some of my Totally Dazzled jewels and went through them, and I found this cute little jewel. And so I'm just going to glue that right to the very top part just to give it a little something something, and that's all I did to finish this project.
Come to the water where you will find peace. Take a step into the river. Get down on your knees. Come to the mountain while taking in the view. You will find that life is greater than you knew when you go.
I wanted to use this color again called Irish. I thought it was really pretty. And I have this beautiful little porcelain bowl that I got from the thrift store. Okay, I know it's not porcelain, but I'm calling it that, okay? And it has really pretty designs on the outside. So I just gave it 2 coats all over of this Irish color. And I also have a candle holder that you'll see to the right, and it's got little bunnies on it, and I'm going to give it 2 coats of this color Irish also.
And you let the bridges burn. So come to the water. You're sailing with the breeze. Take a step into the river where you will find peace.
I'm going to put some good old Debbie's white wax on this, but first I'm just going to use a little bit of clear wax because I tend to use too much of the white wax. And if you use clear wax underneath it, it's easier to get it off if you need some of it off. Now, I'm not a fan of this home decor white wax, or clear wax, I'm sorry. It's too runny. I just want to say that. To me, it's too runny. So I put it on and wiped it off a little bit, but there's nothing like this Debbie's DIY white wax. All you do is just put it on, and it's your preference. You can take it right back off that minute. I've seen some people leave it on for an hour, so it's all up to you. But you basically put it on and wipe it off. I'm going to show you the difference in the color because people say, why do you put white wax on that? Look at the difference in the color of these. The little bowl is what I just did, and look at all the little designs on it popping. And then the little candle holder there with the bunnies I hadn't done yet. But did you see that? It's a major difference, and it's really pretty. I wanted to go heavy on my bunnies, and so I did.
While taking in the view, you will find that life is greater than you knew. When you go through the storm, I will hold you, keep you warm. When you stay in the night,
It's amazing how it makes every single detail just pop and beautiful.
I took that little dish and I put 2 tiny birds in it that I got off of Amazon. They are linked in my Amazon store. And I laid down a walnut and made teeny tiny eggs out of clay. And I think it's so cute. The next DIY is this beautiful little bunny cutout that I got from the Hobby Lobby. And I got this fabric at Dollar Tree, y'all, and this fabric is beautiful. I found like 3 different ones that I really liked. And what I'm going to do is just Mod Podge this fabric onto my bunny so it's not so plain. And guys, that bunny was $3.99 half off, so I only paid like $2 for him. And so what I'm going to do, since this is fabric, I'm going to use a pretty good thick layer of the Mod Podge because we definitely want it to stick. And I used my hands and a brayer to kind of push the fabric up as I was putting it on the bunny. That way it was almost like I was ironing it out, and I was pushing it up so there wouldn't be any wrinkles and so it would be nice and taut. And I cut a little hole to pull his tail through.
So come to the water where you will find peace. Take a step into the river and get down on your knees.
I let that bunny dry all night, and this was the next day. You see, when I picked it up, the fabric was stiff as a board, and I started by just cutting the excess fabric off. I even tried to use like a little sander, and it just wasn't coming off very easily. And so I just took out my little X-Acto knife and cut off all the excess. Then I just pulled out a little bit of that lace ribbon that's very vintage looking. It comes from the Dollar Tree. I absolutely love it. And I just glued it on the back so it would look like it's a little girl with a little necklace on. And I put a hair bow in her hair and a couple of solo wood flowers.
What's it like to be the one that he turns to when he's out of answers? What's it like to be the one that he comes to when he wants to dance? And I wonder what's that like?
The next one is a thrift store find that I've had for a while. It's actually a little soap dish, but we're going to turn it into a little, kind of like a little basket, if you will. And so I had already painted him white with Waverly's white chalk paint, and I'm going over it with that clear white wax. And then I'm just going to take my Waverly's antique wax and I'm going to go over him. I went over him a little heavy in some spots and a little lighter in other spots, but I basically just put that antique wax on and wiped the majority of it off. And that's all I did for this little guy. And I staged him by putting some of the fake grass, the reindeer moss that comes from the Dollar Tree. I put it in the little soap dish, and I put some of the moss in there too. And I added a little bird in there and some cute little eggs. And I love, absolutely love all the decor on the front of this little dish because it came to life when I added that antique wax to it, and it made it so sweet and cute. And it just gave him new life. And this is old decor I've had for a while, and you can juice up your old decor and use it. And in spots where I overdid the antique wax, I just go right back over with the white paint, and we fixed it up. This next one is probably the easiest of them all. I got this beautiful ornate frame for $1.99 at the Discovery Outlet, and it came from Walmart. It holds a 5x7. All I'm going to do is just take the sticker off, and I'm going to give it some white paint. I give it 2 coats of the white Adirondack by Home Decor. When it was totally dry, I just took a clean microfiber cloth and wiped over it, and that distressed it beautifully. Then I added the Bible verse, Matthew 28:6 in there. He is not here, for he is risen, as he has said. Come see the place where the Lord lay. I love that. This is such a pretty frame for $2, and honestly, I would prefer and don't mind paying the extra dollar over Dollar Tree because the quality is so much better. That frame came from Walmart. I've got a huge tin can that had green beans in it. I took everything off of it, and we're going to use Home Decor's White Adirondack, and I'm just going to give it one quick coat. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to get a base coat down so that when we do our mold, it's going to be white underneath and you won't see that gold peeking out. We're going to use a mold by Prima Redesign, and it's called Avian Love. It's got some beautiful birds on the front, and I'm going to use my DIYS clay. All you do is get you some clay in your hand and roll it around, get it good and warmed up, and you just push it down into the mold. These are very easy to work with as long as you have a good clay. You always want to put some cornstarch down, just brush it around inside your mold because it makes it a lot easier for it to come up. And you just basically just put your mold down in there. I also just heard that if you put your mold in the freezer for 15 minutes after you get it made, that it will pop out very easily. Now, I put clay in this whole entire mold, but in the end, I decided not to use the whole thing. You'll see in just a moment. And once I get all the clay in there, you just push down with your fingers. You want to get a good straight back, or try to get it as straight as you can, because that's what's going to glue onto something. And then you just flip it over and get it out of there. And a lot of times if you bend your mold, it will come out very, very easily. I had a little bit of a tough time trying to get my birds out of here. I kind of had to do them one by one. You know, on the mold, they're actually attached. But I kind of had to do them one by one and then piece them back together once I had them out. Now, I didn't know about that freezer technique before this video, so I'm going to definitely try that next time. I had a little issue trying to get these guys out, as you see. I've been so sick this week with COVID, and my back went out in the middle of all of it, so I hope you guys can just have mercy with me through this video. But as you see, I'm sitting there kind of wrestling a little bit with this, and I didn't bend it as much as I could either. A lot of times when you bend that mold, like almost in half, it'll come out a lot easier. These are super easy to put on. I use my Star Bond instant glue. You can use any type of an instant glue. I've even seen people use that Type Bond wood glue. Just something that's permanent. E6000, something like that. I basically just kind of laid everything down to see exactly where I wanted it. And then you very carefully flip it back over. Now you do this when the clay is still pliable and it moves around very easy, because you want it to form to whatever you're laying it on. So you don't want to wait until it hardens up, because then it would just be flat and you couldn't get it on that curved surface there, if that makes sense. So see, you just put your glue on the back and put your little birdies down, and then you leave it alone for 24 hours and let it cure. And if I have any imperfections, like little pieces that I want to come off there, you can use a small nail file, or you can even use your X-Acto knife and just kind of scrape and like cut it to get that little extra piece off. I mixed 1 part baking soda to 1 part of Waverly's Moss paint. And you want the consistency of kind of like a melted
milkshake, or that's how I like it, where it's kind of still thick. Now, we're going to put this all over our little can, and we're going to daub it on so it gives it some real pretty texture. I find that if you use a sponge, you get a much better result. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but you definitely get a better result than you do of using a brush. It just gives it a little bit more of that thickness and that texture that I like. Then I got my Waverly's Antique Wax and I watered it down just a little bit, and we're going to put that all over the can, mostly on the bottom to kind of give it a little bit of a rusty-ish effect. And then I put it all around the picture of the birds and stuff too, so that they would stand out a little bit. Then I went over everything with Waverly's Mineral, and I used a brush to do this, and I very, very lightly wisped it over the birds because I'm going to put several different colors on those birds so that all of their little wing effects will stick out. You're going to see every little divot in these birds. Then I did the exact same thing with the ink, which is the black from Waverly. And I very, very lightly wisped it across the birds and all of the branches. Then I used this color called Sunset Rose by Home Decor. And all I'm doing with it is painting the flower buds. I'm just going to paint them that real pretty pink color so that will kind of pop away from the rest of the can. Then I went in with the color Cashew all over the birds, just very lightly. I just dry brushed it on. Like I said, I want all these different colors so that they would have so many different dimensions to them, and they're really going to be pretty in the end. I wanted to get just a little bit more detail than what I was getting on the birds, so I mixed up a little bit of black paint with white DIY wax. And that wax is the Debbie's DIY wax. I love to use it on everything. It's very buttery, and you can mix any color with it and make your wax that color. So we're going to wax up our birds, and then I actually wet my finger and use my finger to rub it in and distress it, and it gave it a beautiful effect. Then I went right back in with that cashew and did the exact same thing, but this time I used a small little detail brush, and I put it mostly on the wings and around the head of the bird so that they would look like real birds and have different colors and dimensions to them. Then I took some lace, and we're going to wrap this around the top and the bottom. I'm just going to put a little dab of glue and put my lace on there and go all the way around. I left some of the lace sticking up so that I could tuck it back down inside the pot. Then after I got it all the way around the top part of the little can, I went inside and put just a little bit of glue around the rim there and pushed it down so that it would be on both sides. Because when you put your plant in there, you're going to be able to see that lace on the top part, and I wanted both sides to look good. And I did the exact same thing on the bottom part. I took an old candlestick from another project that I had done previously, and it was already painted and distressed, but I just went over it very lightly and distressed white back over it to take off some of that distressing because it had a little bit too much for what I was wanting. I just cleaned up the top, and then I just glued my little tin right to the top with E6000. I hope you like it.
Young, and we didn't want to be exposed. Even though it was cold, we were never wearing proper clothes. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, smoking cigarettes behind the school. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, you know. I still think
For DIY number 2,
we're going to make some pocket posies. These are just little soup cans, small size. You take the bottom lid off, so you got bottom and top lids off. Make sure it's cleaned out real good. And I just used my hands and kind of squeezed the way that I want it. You go very, very carefully and slowly, and you're just squeezing the bottom. And then once you get mostly squeezed down, you just use your mallet and you pound it together tightly so that it's closed up all the way. You don't want your dirt falling out if you put real plants in. So I gave both of them a really quick base coat of the white Adirondack. We're going to use some rice paper on these, and you definitely don't want that silver background showing through your rice paper. So that's why I did a quick white coat. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. I used the Mod Podge called Hard Coat because these are going to be outside with real flowers in them, and I want them protected. Now, I just did this in sections. I put down about half of the Mod Podge, and then I just laid my little picture down, and I used my brush to let it fall where it wants to. See, you put your Mod Podge down, and then you just kind of let it fall as it wants to. The rice paper is a lot easier to work with than napkins. It doesn't wrinkle as easy. So you just go slow and you'll be fine. And this came out with absolutely no wrinkles, and it's a beautiful picture. On the other one, we do the exact same thing. You put down Mod Podge on half of that image back there, and then you just let it fall where it may. And then you put it on the other half. And then once you have your image on there, I go around the edges really well to make sure that they are sealed. And then I go across the front of it. So I mixed up my baking soda with this color called Lilac. I did want texture on only one of them. So I did the half and half, or 1-to-1 ratio. It was about 1 spoon of paint and 1 spoon of baking soda, roughly. I mixed it up and put it on there with my little sponge. Then I had some of these little molds, and they just came from Amazon, little cheap molds. And I put my clay in those, and I just made my cornstarch, and I pulled them out, and we're going to put these on our little tin cans. And I just kind of sped through this part putting them on because I had showed you earlier, and I have other videos where you can see it in more detail. You just basically put your glue on the back, and then you put them down, and I put one on each corner of both of my little pocket posies. I did the exact same technique where I mixed up the antique wax, the Waverly's Antiques wax and water, and I put it all over these little molds, because once I wipe it off, it's going to bring out those beautiful low areas. That wax just seeps right down into it. After I had wiped off my antique wax, I go over the whole thing with my Debbie's DIY wax, the white wax, and then I just wipe off the excess. Then to make a little hanger, I take one of those ribbons from the Dollar Tree. I tie a knot in both ends, and I use that knot, I glue it just inside the sides of my little pocket posy, and that's what's going to hold it up. It's so adorable. Now, I do have a crocodile, and I could have poked 2 little holes in the side and put wire, but I think that this look was just perfect and dainty with that rice paper, because that Victorian looking ribbon just set it off. And I did the exact same thing for the white one that I did for the purple. Then I took some Slick. It's called Slick, and it's made by Tulip, and it's basically like puffy paints. And I just made little dots all the way around the outline of that picture. And it dries that way, and it dries hard, and it's just so pretty on these. I had a mold that had a teeny tiny little bird, and I made him and to set right on the ledge of that window. So my one little pocket posy has a 3D effect on the front.
What's it like to be the one that he turns to when he's out of answers? What's it like to be the one that he comes to when he wants to dance? And I wonder what's that like? I have got him on my mind, but he doesn't know my name.
Now let's jump into our last DIY of the day, number 3. This one's super easy. I found this at the thrift store. They have a room in the front. It's garbage, basically, and you go in, and everything in there is free. If you see something you want, you take it, because at the end of the day, they throw it away. Well, I found this old coffee table tray, and I thought, we can do something with this. It had a hideous picture of a horse smoking on it. And it was soaking wet in the back. And look at all the dings and divots. And it was just terrible. But we're going to take care of that. I sanded it down really good. And I got all of those old dings out of it. So what I'm going to do is give it a couple of coats of my white Adirondack. We are going to take a piece of drop cloth that's the exact same size as the backing. And I just made a new backing since the other one had been wet and it was ruined. And I just used some poster board from Dollar Tree. And we're going to take this beautiful little bunny print and you lay it down face first. And you put your heat resistant tape down. And I just put 2 pieces. And that's just so it won't shift around because your colors would look funny. And then you just put your piece of wax paper down. And I put my Cricut Easy Press on the top for 60 seconds on 400 degrees. Hey, if y'all stuck through this video so far, you are champions. Thank you so much. I've been so sick this week, but I wanted to make sure that I got a video out for you guys. I don't want to miss a week because I love doing this so much and I love y'all. And you're my family and I just never want to disappoint y'all. So this is going to be in my Etsy store, this new print, and it's gorgeous. Look how pretty this is when I pull this away. It just takes my breath every time I pull that paper up. So I take my piece of drop cloth and I hold it tightly and I flip it over. And all I'm going to do is just glue the back of this down and I glue it close to the sides there. And then I'm just going to cut off any excess that there is hanging over when I'm finished. So when I finished gluing it down, I flipped it over and I put that glass back in the tray and then I pushed it down and it was a perfect fit. It was very good and sturdy, so it's not going anywhere. I didn't feel that I needed to put any nails or anything in it because it is perfectly still. And then I just cut off the excess. And that's it to this one. I hope you guys enjoy. And just think, if I wouldn't have found this tray, it would have been in the garbage the exact same day. Now this print is available in my Etsy store. It's Kathy's Crafty Boutique. And I also leave the link for it in the description box. And anything else that I mentioned in this video, like from Amazon and stuff like that, all of it is in my description box.
Well, I noticed as I was rubbing the clear wax over my piece that a little bit of the paint kind of here and there was kind of coming up. See where I'm pointing at? So I felt it would be in my best interest to grab some Big Top. It's a DIY sealer. You do have to seal DIY paint whenever you use it. And I was going to do so with the wax, but like I said, I noticed that a little bit of the paint here and there was kind of coming off, and I was like, I am not going to chance the work that I just did. So I grabbed some Big Top, and it was very quick. It's a nice little sealer, and I went over the whole piece really quick with that.
after I got the big top dry, I just went ahead over that whole entire piece with that clear wax once again, so that whenever I put my wax, the colored wax, over the top of it, it will be so much easier to wipe back. We are going to use the DIY dark wax, and as you see on my finger, it's kind of a brownish color. I started off putting it on this wax brush that I bought from Amazon, and then I remembered that that's the one where the bristles come out really bad. That's what's all inside my Dixie Belle clear wax. So I just used a different wax brush, and you see it takes very little. I just wanted a very little, like, subtle hint that those book pages are old. I went over the feet. I love the feet on this thing. They're so beautiful and ornate, and anything that's beautiful and ornate like that, I think it needs a little bit of wax on it just to kind of accentuate it. So I went all around my piece, especially in those book pages. Then I worked my way around to the spine of the book, and I definitely wanted to add some dark wax there on all those little pieces on the spine. I thought that would be really pretty and just give it the right pop that it needed. And I don't have a lot of patience, so I just kind of went over the whole area really quick. And then I just grabbed, I was looking for like a dry rag, and I couldn't find one in my craft room because y'all know I haven't been out here in over a month. And so I just used a dry baby wipe. And it was so much easier to wipe it back because I put down that clear wax first. It just creates like a slick surface, if you will. So when you add wax on top of it, whether it's black wax, white wax, dark wax, whatever, it just makes it easier for you to wipe back. And that's what I wanted, because I knew that I didn't want to put a lot of wax on this, but I wanted it to be enough where it's going to look really pretty and accentuate all the beautiful aspects of this piece. I love the little bird and his feathers. I wanted all that to stick out, so I covered the whole birdie up, and then I just wiped all that back too. This was a really easy project, and it came out so pretty. I can't believe I got this piece for $3 because I'm telling y'all, in Chattanooga, this probably, they would have had about a $15 price on it at the thrift store, and it probably was only about $13 as it was when it was brand new. That's just thrifting in Chattanooga, guys. So yeah, I'm just wiping it all back. And when I finished with that last little bit of putting the wax on, I realized that I had the wax all over my fingers, and I wasn't going to put it on the inside, but I made fingerprints all in the inside of that thing. So I thought, well, let's just go ahead and add a little dark wax inside, which I did. And I just did it very lightly just to kind of cover up where I put my fingerprints in. And I just wiped that back, and it came out so beautiful.
You are my shelter from the storm. You keep me safe inside your wings. You are my comfort when life gets hard. You lead me to water to drink, and now I trust your gentle hand.
The next one is this 8x8 plaque that I found at the Goodwill. I only paid $1.99, but you see it came from Hobby Lobby, and it's normally $14.99. So I thought that was a decent deal for $1.99. I really liked the texture that it had on it. It had like a raised texture or something. I can't really describe it, but I really liked it. Kind of like a roughed up texture. We're going to use DIY beadboard, and I just gave it one simple quick over coat. I did not paint down the sides because they were a beautiful dark brown, and I wanted to leave them that color. And I was so happy to get to crack out my new mold that I got from Miss Lori at Milton's Daughter, and this is a Frames 1 mold.
I had been wanting this thing forever, and I'm so glad that I have one now. The possibilities are endless with this mold. All I did was use that amazing casting resin, and you get it at Amazon. It's linked in my Amazon store, and it literally only takes 10 minutes to set up, and you're good to go. I'm going to use these prints that I did on my regular printer in this one napkin. Now what I did on these is I just pulled these prints off the internet, and I did use that Rust-Oleum ×2 matte clear spray to spray over them, because sometimes if you do stuff on your printer and then it gets like a decoupage placed over the top of it, you know, like to seal the decoupage, the colors may run. So always just spray it before you use it to make sure. Now those of you that watch me regularly know that I do not cut my decoupage pieces. I like to have them torn because it just gives it a better look. So what I do is just spray a little bit of water on my silicone mat, and I use a tiny paintbrush, and I just go around the image where I want it torn at. It makes it so easy just to tear perfectly. Now, that's not saying that I don't use images that are like squared like this image or anything like that. I still use those type of images, but I always make sure that I tear the edges, just because it just, I don't know, it just gives it such a better look. I never have scissors around my decoupage unless I'm just like doing a rough cut to cut the piece off. So all I'm going to do is go around each of these. I know that the two bunnies are going to have to be pretty small to fit on the two molds that I picked for them. So I went around and just got basically their little heads off there. Now we're ready to move on. I realized that this is going to be a little bit shorter. The picture is a little bit shorter than what I needed in this frame. Do you see what I'm talking about here? So what I did was I just tore the side of it off, and I'm going to use that on the bottom. That's the beauty of decoupage. You never know the difference. It looks like it was meant to be. Look at that. And that's the side of the picture, and you're never going to know that it was, you know, the side of the picture. For this one, I'm going to use my permanent glue stick. And y'all know me, if you watch my channel, my favorite method of putting decoupage on is the easiest. Use a glue stick. It makes life so much easier, y'all. And I just like, this one is a permanent because I do want this to be permanent. I still use the washable ones, but I use it on stuff that I may want to change later, you know, that's going to be here for my house. But if I'm selling something, I always make sure that I use that permanent. So anyways, that's enough about the glue stick, but I mean, it's very important to kind of note that, you know, if you've never used a glue stick to do your decoupage, honey, I'm telling you, it opens a whole new world. It's so much easier. And so what I did was just made sure everything was exactly where it's supposed to be. I ripped off a little piece there, and I'm just going to put my glue stick on the back of this and put this down. Once I get my picture down, my next step is to take this resin frame, and I'm going to use my Titebond Quick and Thick. Actually it's a wood glue, but most of us DIYers use this on our molds simply because it works amazing on them. Now I'm just going to place the frame right over the top of my picture, and see where I was telling you how it was shorter, and you can never know anything's different. The next one that I'm going to use is this cute little bunny that was on the napkin. And I'm just going to add my glue stick on the back, and just look at the difference when I lay him down at how much that brightens up, because he has a white background behind him. That's why I always kind of prefer, when I'm doing decoupage, to have a really light colored background, because you see how the image just pops. Now, I'm very impatient. I should have waited until this dried to take off the excess pieces, but like I said, I'm impatient. So I used my fingernail, and I used this little tool that I have to kind of, show me where the corner is, where I need to cut. And then I got the X-Acto knife and just took the excess off. I love the way that this looks in this frame, and it's just the little bunny's head. It's so sweet. And the next one that I'm going to use is this little brightly colored bunny. And he was a lot easier to cut out because he was in that oval frame. And so I just went along with my X-Acto knife and just kind of cut it out and did the exact same thing as I did on the first one. I had that really sped up, but I went super slow because it was still wet and I was afraid I was going to pull up the picture, but thank goodness I didn't. And then I just put a little bit of that quick and thick glue on the back of those two pictures and placed them where I wanted them on the frame. I sealed these with a Pentart decoupage varnish that I got from Lori over at Milton's Daughter. I just felt that it would be best to seal these. Now, sometimes when you print an image on your printer and you put something wet over the top of it, like a Mod Podge or this varnish, there's a big chance that those colors may run. But if you remember, I was telling you that I used that Rust-Oleum spray called Matte Clear before I did anything, and so I know these colors are not going to run. I noticed when I put that Pentart decoupage sealer on the top of that bottom bunny that he wrinkled up a little bit. If you remember, he was that napkin, and napkins are very prone to wrinkling. So what I did was just take my saran wrap on my finger and get all of the wrinkles out. I'm going to use DIYS paint in the beautiful color Apothecary. It's probably my favorite green paint that was ever created. It's so beautiful, and it's a perfect spring color. Now I'm going to use this brush that has kind of like a little pointy end, because if you notice, all of those frames have these beautiful details. I want to get down inside all those little grooves, and that's why I'm using this paintbrush. But I went over this whole picture on the front and painted it with that beautiful color Apothecary. I definitely believe that I made the right choice in my paint color because, honey, it made this picture just come to life, and it's so beautiful. I have a confession to make. I use these Dollar General store basting brushes as my paint brushes. They're pretty much the same thing as a chippy brush, and you get 2 for $1. Now that's a deal. They work really well, guys. The bristles don't fall out a lot. I love them. So what I did was just put a little bit of DIY white wax on my brushes, and I went around each of the frames. I really put a lot of the super easy. I grabbed some of these peat pots from the Dollar Tree. These are the larger images, and I painted each one white. Now, I didn't get a full coverage. I just kind of haphazardly painted them. I'm using the washable glue stick on these because I will probably change out the images, and it'll just be easier to get off. So what I did is I already have my napkins torn, and if you notice, I put a little bit of that glue stick on my fingers because it helps you to get those layers taken off. And you see here, all I'm doing is putting down a little bit of my glue stick. And I do love the fact that this is purple, so you can always see where you put it down at, And you just rub over, and that's all I'm doing on these. It's super easy and simple. There's not a wrinkle in any of these. And they do have that rough texture look about them, but that's because the peat pot has that type of texture, and it comes through. And it's just really pretty, and I love it.
I'm just taking my little hand sander here and getting the excess off of the bottom of the napkin. And that one is absolutely finished. It's that easy, guys. And I have to say, these are adorable. Look how cute this is. So then I'm moving on to my next one, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Put a little bit of that glue stick on my fingers because it's just easier to get the layers apart. And this is a beautiful bird. I got these napkins off of Amazon. They're in my Amazon store, and they weren't expensive at all. I'm doing the exact same thing, just putting down a little bit of glue stick, and look how easy this is. Just letting it lay down where it wants to. I'm not trying to force the napkin, and then I lightly use my finger to rub over it to make sure that it's down there. I love the way that these napkins look with that texture on them. You know, the peat pot, how it has that texture. It just comes through so pretty on the napkins. It's not even picking up on camera, but it's really beautiful. And so here I'm just going through again with my little hand sander. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing to the last one. This is one of those little projects that you can do for spring. And it's so simple and easy, but it really says a lot. You know, if you have these sitting out, say, in your living room with some little fresh flowers in them, it's just so beautiful. Now, I just styled these with some fake flowers and a little bit of Spanish moss, but it's a cute little idea to bring a touch of spring into your home.
I wanna jump around when I think about yesterday. Your smile, your style so fly, my oh my. As time stood still, I got the urge to steal a kiss, and so I did. Now I'm embarrassed, but just a little bit. Oh, there must be gold on those lips and honey on those fingertips.
Now, this last one is super quick. You guys know that every time the season changes that I do candles in each season. Well, this is not going to be any different. We're going to do the same thing. I've got this gorgeous decoupage paper from my friend Brandy over at the DIY Struggle. Now, she has a small business and she makes this decoupage paper. Now, I know in the past when she's made these decoupage papers, they sell out the very day that they come out. Like, she can't get enough to sell because they are at a great price and they're beautiful. I mean, and a lot of people love the thought of supporting a small business, and I definitely do. So what we're going to do is just use 2 of these pictures, my favorite 2 off of these, and we're going to wrap it on our candles, just like I do every season. Now, I'm going to leave her information down below just in case these pictures, or this paper, is still in. You can go get you some. But even if the paper is not in, just keep her in mind because she puts them out for every season and they're just gorgeous. Now, I'm using the washable glue stick on these because you guys know that like I said, I change them every season. So I want these to be able to just peel off. And literally, that's what they do. I put them on battery-powered candles, and when you use that washable glue stick, it just peels right off. Now, all I'm doing is just putting this on my candle, and then I'm taking my little hand sander, and I'm being careful because it is candle, it's a wax, and I'm just taking off that excess. And I'm sorry, but I can't wait. I had to flip off the lights and show you what this looks like when it's lit up. Is that not beautiful? What a great way to bring a little touch of spring into your home. Like maybe you're bedridden or you're having health problems. These are the easiest DIYs to do, and plus it's keeping your mind busy. That's one reason why I love to craft, because it keeps my mind off of things that it shouldn't be on, like the pain that I have in my back or, you know, things like that. It keeps me busy and it gives me a purpose, and I always feel accomplished when I do something, and I'm proud of myself. And I love the idea of doing my own home decor because I can do it to my taste, you know, and I'm not buying it. I'm not spending a bunch of extra money. Most of my stuff is either, you know, repurposed from the thrift store or something that I'm reusing from my own home. But it's such a simple way to bring a little bit of spring into your home. I hope you like this one.
Can you imagine us two out in the woods?
That's all for today's video. I just want to thank you so much for coming and spending your time and crafting with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would, please hit the subscribe button if you're not a part of our family, because we would love to have you. And if you did enjoy this video, hit the like button because it really helps me out on YouTube. And leave me a comment and let me know what you think about this. And I'll be working on some more to bring to you really soon. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. And I started thinking of some things that I could do, and I thought, you know what? I've not made a video for the real meaning of Easter, so I want this video to be that. And these DIYs turned out so pretty, you guys are going to love them. But I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just jump on into them. All right, guys, let's get started with our first DIY. It is a gorgeous wreath for our door. I got this sign that says Faith, Hope, and Love at Hobby Lobby in their wood section. It has $3.99 on it, but I got it when it was half off, so I only paid $2 for it. And then I have this little wooden cross that's behind it, and I got that at the Dollar Tree. Then I have a variety of flowers, mostly from like Temu and Dollar Tree, and I wanted them to be very light color, like creams and ivories. And then I have this simple willow wreath that I picked up from the thrift store. And I'm going to set that aside because we're going to start working on the wood pieces to start off. Okay, I'm going to put down a quick piece of wax paper because that's how I prefer to paint, because I'm the messiest painter in the world. I got some Dixie Belle stain, and it's called Tobacco Road. It is like a gel stain, and I'm going to use that on my cross. I just put a little bit down and use my paintbrush to kind of go over it. I want it to be a little messy and not so perfect. I'm going to take a baby wipe and just kind of blend that brown all through. And I make sure that I get all the edges. I want to get the sides, and I also want to get the back of this cross because I don't want to leave anything undone on this one. Then I'm going to use that brush that I just used on that cross, and I'm not going to put any more product on it. I'm just going to dry brush the rest of that brown over the words Faith, Love, and Hope. I want it to be very light and very feathery looking. And then I'm going to take my DIY paint in the color Crinoline. It's a beautiful ivory color. It's perfect. It's just what I want. And I'm just going to dry brush this product on also. I'm going to get very little on this little bristle brush, and I'm just going to go over the words very feathery so it just kind of mixes in with that brown and looks like both of the words or both of the colors are distressed. Then I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back of the words Faith, Love, and Hope, and I'm going to situate them on that cross and make sure that it covers up that little hole on the top. Now we're going to start in with our flowers. I'm going to cut each of these off the stems. I have this beautiful white arrangement, and I got it at Temu, and it's got a little bit of creams in it, which is exactly what I wanted, and I'm going to keep it in its own little paw. And then this is another bouquet that they sent me from Temu, and it is a beautiful, like beigey color. You know, it's so pretty.
Then I've got these beautiful eucalyptus stems, and I'm not sure where I got them. I think it was at Walmart, but I love to have greenery in my wreaths. Then I have a couple of little single pieces here that I got from Temu. Now, by no means am I a master wreath maker, but I do stick to a couple of very simple principles, and my wreaths come out nice every time. The first thing I like to do when I'm doing a wreath is to start off with some kind of greenery, and I love to use these. I want to say that this is eucalyptus, and these are longer stems. I like for the longer stems to go up toward the top because they just kind of open up and curve around, and they go exactly where I need them to go. And then the next piece of the eucalyptus that I put in there is a little bit shorter than the first piece. And I'm just going to push it down a little bit more than I did the first one. I'm almost doing like a step down technique. The first piece was the tallest one, and this one could be considered, I don't know, maybe a middle-sized piece of eucalyptus, but I'm kind of going down in sizes as I go down this wreath. The next thing that I'm going to add is going to be these lamb's ear, and they come from Walmart. It's my favorite lamb's ear. I think it's very realistic looking, and I cut it off at the very bottom of the leaves there, and I'm going to place one on the right side and one on the left side in the exact same spot. And that's another one of my things. I always like to use 3 different colors of greenery because I think it brings your eye into the whole piece. And I always do the same thing on both sides. For example, you see I put that one piece of lamb's ear on the right side. I'm putting that exact same piece on the left side. Also, with the eucalyptus, I put the exact same pieces on the right that I put on the left. It just is cohesive, and it just makes your wreath work that way. I did take one piece of the eucalyptus here, and I'm going to put it in the bottom of the wreath just because I wanted just a little bit of greenery down there. Not a lot. It's just kind of going to be an afterthought, if you will, like a background piece. Then I take my last 2 pieces of the eucalyptus and pop them in the very top, and they were the smallest pieces that I had. Now, these different bouquets that I had, I kept them in their own little piles after I cut them up. And this one only had one of these roses in there. And guys, if this is not a rose, don't come after me. I don't know my flowers from Adam, okay? I just don't know. So I think it looks like a rose to me, so I'm going to call it a rose. It did have these 2 that have the little 2 pieces, the little 2 smaller ones on it, you see, and I did put one on the left and one on the right. I decided to put that one single piece kind of up front on the right side. Now here I go in with what looks to me like azaleas. And there was 2 of those. So you notice I put one on the right and one exactly across from it on the left. And then there was just this little piece of like greenery with a little bit of baby's breath, and I stuck it down at the bottom right there beside that other piece of eucalyptus. Now these that I'm putting in are just random pieces that was in a box that came from Temu. It had like 12 different flowers, different varieties, and since these are the same flower, I put one on the left and one on the right at the very top. And I don't know why it is, but if you do the same thing on the left that you do on the right, it's like your mind recognizes it when it looks at the piece and it knows that it's cohesive. And here I'm just kind of fluffing everything out and making sure everything looks good. Now, when I'm doing my wreaths, even though I do the same thing on both sides, I very often go through and just fluff everything and kind of look at it, step back and look at it and make sure it's the same. And here I'm showing you, see the top 2 flowers are the exact same flower, and then we have the eucalyptus, then the things that look like the azaleas, and then at the bottom I have what I call the roses. It may be some type of a peony, but guys, I really don't know my flowers that well. And I'm taking these little flowers here that came off of a different bouquet. These were also from Temu, and they are a cream color. It's the same flower as you see. So I'm going to put one on the right side there. I put it toward the outside part of the wreath. And then I'm going to put the exact same flower on the left side there in the same spot. Now, I do believe that if you add too much stuff to your wreath, it starts to kind of look tacky. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes less is more. And a lot of times I will stop, or quite often I stop and just set my wreath back and just kind of look at it and say, okay, do we need to stop here or do we need to keep going? Because I have a tendency to put too much stuff on everything I do. And with wreaths, you don't have to do that, you know. So I just want to show you here at the very top, I have those two flowers that are the exact same flower. And then you can see the eucalyptus under it. And then under that is the azaleas. And then we have that lamb's ear. And then we have the beautiful, what I call roses at the very bottom. And a little bit more greenery. But everything is cohesive. Everything matches. It goes with what's exactly on the opposite side. Now here I just added this one extra flower that I had toward that middle part of the wreath there. And I don't know, I just had it and I wanted to add it. Now, sorry my head's in the way. I did not like those leaves that was on the Temu flowers because they looked so cheap and they were just gaudy looking. And I just took scissors and cut the doggone things off. Then here, this is just like a little piece of some type of flower and it's got them horrible leaves on it. And I pulled it off and I'm just going to add it. At this point, I realized that we're getting pretty full, that we really don't need to do much more because it's looking great. But I did want, you know, several things at the very bottom, middle part of that wreath. I definitely wanted several things because that's where we're going to put our cross, and I just wanted it to be where your eye goes. Well, I've got my cross and my little sign out here, so I must have thought that I had plenty enough flowers, and I'm just going to add some hot glue at the bottom of my cross on the front and the back side because I am going to situate this down into those branches where it's going to stand straight up behind all those beautiful flowers. I just held on to it for a few moments until it took hold and stayed there by itself. Now, the last thing that I did to my wreath was take two of those little tumbling tower blocks, put some hot glue on them, and put them on the back of the cross so that it would stand up, and it just gave it a little added support. And I hope you like this wreath. I think it turned out beautiful.
You are my shelter from the storm. You keep me safe inside your wings. You are my comfort when life gets hard. You lead me to water to drink, and now I trust your gentle hand, even when I can't understand. I know your voice, I'm not afraid, walking with me at the same pace.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I would like to ask you a couple things. Would you please hit the like button because it really helps me out on YouTube? And also, if you're coming over from one of the other channels, I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for stopping in to craft with me. If you would, hit that red subscribe button and become a part of our family. I would love to have you, and we always have room for more. I got this picture at the thrift store for $2 or $3 a few years ago. It's just been sitting in my craft room. It's the music to the old rugged cross, and I think it's gorgeous. It's still in the plastic. It's never been used, and it had a Hobby Lobby tag on the back. So it's time that we give this baby some new life. I've always loved those pictures where that has the music in the background and then the main words to the song or the chorus is like in bold letters up in the front. And so that's what I want to do with this picture. And spoiler alert, it turns out beautiful. But the first thing I'm going to do is take my DIY paint in this off-white color called crinoline, and I'm going to give this frame 2 full coats all over. The next thing that I did was took my clear wax, which is a Dixie Belle brand, because I just haven't bought the DIY brand. And it's okay. I like it pretty good. It work in a pinch. But it's just clear wax. And I went all the way around this to seal this paint. Because with DIY paint, you know you need to seal it. It's a gorgeous clay-based paint. And I absolutely love it. It's my favorite paint. And I get my DIY paint and all my IOD supplies, all that good stuff from Lori at Milton's Daughter. And I'll leave her information in the description link so y'all can find her very easy. But it's basically www.miltonsdaughter.com. And if you use the code CraftyCathy10, you get 10% off your first order. And she has a lot of discounts. What I'm doing here is taking my DIY black wax, and I am very lightly going in the corners here where you see that beautiful like floral pattern that's all the way around this frame. And I'm very, very lightly going around the frame, and I'm going to use that baby wipe and wipe off that excess and just wipe off what I need. Now, the reason why I put down clear wax before I put down black wax is when you use the black wax, sometimes it's too much. It's just too black, you know, it's too vibrant. It's too much for your piece. And if you put down that clear wax first, it creates a waxy surface. So when you put down your black wax, it just makes it so much easier to control. So if you want to take more of it off, you can. You know, you can do it without putting down the clear wax first, but it's a lot tougher. You know, it just makes it easier to control how much of that black you actually want on there. And I knew I didn't want to bombard this with black because my paint is that beautiful crinoline color, and I want that to be the main color. You know, I don't want to cover it up. So all I did basically was go around. I kind of pounced down in the outer seams there where you see that beautiful floral pattern because I really wanted that to shine. And then when you brush over the top of it with that baby wipe, what happens is that black wax settles down in all those little nooks and crannies, and you're wiping off that top surface, and it just makes for the most beautiful work of art. Now, I purposely kind of streaked this also. I wanted the corner pieces to be a little bit darker, and then I did want it to be slightly streaked looking because I think that's beautiful, and it just made it very lightly distressed, and I absolutely love the way that this frame turned out. Now we're going to work on the piece that has the music on it. I have this beautiful transfer that was sent to me by Essential Stencils. It had a bunch of birds and little bird cages on it. And this is a little bird on a cherry blossom. And I thought it would be perfect on this piece. So what you do is you lay your transfer down and you use a special tool that they send you to rub it on the surface. Now, I couldn't find that little tool, so I just grabbed this small little piece of wood. And you just rub it back and forth as you are pulling that little piece of plastic up, and your transfer is just going to stay on whatever your project is. It's very easy, and then you use the piece of plastic that it came on to rub over the top of it, and that's called burnishing it. Now, I made this on my Cricut, and I don't use my Cricut very often. I used a font called
I think it's called snail round, to be honest with you, and it's spelled Snell. But the main words to the old rugged cross is, I will cherish the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. So instead of putting that whole word on there, or the whole sentence on there, I just put, I will cherish the old rugged cross. And so I'm just going to place this down, and guys, this turned out so beautiful. And then all I did was put this back in the frame, and I hope y'all like this one. I am so in love with this.
Whenever you're down, out in the cold, faithless and dark, your story's untold. Come take my hand and walk there with me. I know a place where we can be free. There is a light shining for you, guiding your way, helping you through. And shadows and gloom are all that you see. We'll find a place where we can be free. From the mountain top down to the deepest valley, hear a voice calling you. It's the rising sun shining in the darkest alley. Can't you see you will be free? I have been far, I have been wide, searching for peace, somewhere to
DIY number 3 is probably one of my favorite ones of this whole video. I have this, I guess it's like a plaque that I got from the Goodwill for $2.99 several years ago. It originally came from Hobby Lobby because it still has that tag on the back, and it's time for me to pull this thing out of my stash and do something with it. And then I have this beautiful statue of Jesus with a little child on his lap. And I'm thinking that we are going to make a beautiful centerpiece. I've got all these different florals, and I wanted white flowers again. And then I've got the lamb's ear, because every time I think of lamb's ear, I think of the Lamb of God, and there's nothing better to use in like a religious type DIY than lamb's ear. So the first thing that I did was take some of my Waverly white chalk paint, and I was going to paint both of these pieces white. And I started painting Jesus here, and then I thought, why don't I just take him outside and spray paint him? So actually, I took both of these pieces. I gave him a quick little coat here because I didn't want it to be distorted looking even after I spray painted it. But I just used that Rust-Oleum flat white spray paint, and I gave him about 2 coats, and then I sprayed at least 2 coats on that other piece. Now we're ready to put these pieces together, and I do the exact same principles with all of my floral stuffs. What you do on one side, you do on the other side. You know, what you do up high, you do down low. You just keep it, you know, with the same technique that I used on that wreath, and we'll be fine. I started off with this long garland that I had that has these white roses on it. And I quickly found that the way that it curled around it was just too much. And so I started cutting the roses down so I could just use the pieces. Sorry about that. That little puppy was hungry, and when he gets hungry, he acts like somebody's attacking him or something. So I've got him fed, and we're back on the project. So I cut the pieces down, and I put an even number of the roses on each side. The reason why I did this is because I'm going to place Jesus right in the center. And so I put like approximately 3 on one side and 3 on the other side. And here I'm showing you, remember how I said I do 3 different pieces of the greenery. We have the pieces that are attached to the rose here. That's one. The second one is going to be the leaves that are in these flowers that came from Temu.
And the third one is going to be our lamb's ear. Now, nothing shouts like a religious type decor like lamb's ear, because when I think of lamb's ear, I think of the Lamb of God. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is take these beautiful azaleas, and they came from that Timu stem, and I'm going to place one little bundle of azaleas on the left and the other bundle just here on the right. And then I'm going to just make a little space here in the middle, because like I said, Jesus is going to sit there in the middle, and we really don't need anything in the middle. And the next thing I'm going to do is take this beautiful lamb's ear, and I'm going to cut it down, and I'm going to fluff it out really good and make sure all the leaves are turned in the right direction, because that's one thing about these from Walmart. They get turned around a little bit. So I place this one little bundle kind of in the center of all those roses on my right side, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on that left side. I cut my little lamb's ear right off at the bottom of the leaves there, and I'm just going to fluff it out, make sure all the leaves are going in the same direction, and I'm going to pick up just a little bit of that greenery and place it underneath just like I did that other one. And I want my azalea there to be laying right on the top of that lamb's ear. And I'm showing you here how I have the azaleas on the top. Underneath that is the lamb's ear, and then that beautiful white long rose stem. And then I place Jesus right there in the center. Now on this one, I did have one piece of this stem left. And I have no idea what kind of flower this is, but it's this little white ball looking creature, and it's so pretty, but I didn't have two of them, so I'm actually breaking my rule. I'm going to set it right there on that side of Jesus because it really looked good there. The next thing I'm going to do is take some of this fine Excelsior. I get this from Hobby Lobby. It's called Super Moss, but as you see, it's just a really fine Excelsior. And I'm just taking small pieces. Look how small these bits are. And I'm going to place one little bit right in the center on the right side and then the left. And then I'm doing the exact same thing in the front on the sides of Jesus. And then I thought that he needed just a little bit like at the front of his feet to totally complete this piece. And you'll notice I'm just using the smallest little bits of this Excelsior. I put a little bit on the very ends because I felt that it needed it, and it just brings a little something to the whole piece. And then I hold it up, and any pieces that look a little bit too long, I just simply cut them. And here's where, when I held it up, I noticed I didn't have enough under Jesus's feet, so I just put a little bitty bit more. And then off camera, I'm going to use what is actually like, it's a little unfinished piece of wood in the shape of a square, like a little coaster. And I'm going to place that under Jesus so that he sets up a little bit better on this. But this is finished, and it's so gorgeous.
I come to you in times of trouble. You're always resting at my door. Though I've wavered, you've been waiting. I'm the one you're looking for. Gratefully and humbly, I give you everything, and all that I can sing is thank you.
Here's our very last one. It's DIY number 4, and it's super quick and simple. I had made this little picture of this sublimated lamb, and it's got the cross behind it. I think it's so pretty. And I'm going to sublimate this onto this piece of drop cloth that I cut off.
I have a sublimation printer and then the special sublimation paper, and I sell my sublimation prints in my Etsy store, which I will leave in the description box. I have a ton of different prints, and it actually comes to your house just like this print does, and it's an actual print that comes to your house. What you do is you lay your print down on whatever you're going to put it on, and then you use this special heat-resistant tape so that it stays in place whenever you place your iron on top. And then you put your parchment paper on the top of that. And then I've got my little Cricut iron here on 385 for 45 seconds. And I held it on there for 45 seconds. And then you just take your sheet off of there. I'm so silly. And then you just take your little parchment paper off. And then you take your actual sheet off there. It's hot, so you just have to be careful. And your print is always beautiful and perfect. Now, I put this on this little piece of drop cloth. The best thing to sublimate on would be polyester, up to like, you can do like a polyester blend, but it needs to be about 65% polyester. And that's what they say the best thing to sublimate on is polyester. But I like to do it on this drop cloth. It's not as vibrant as it would be on polyester, but I think it's just as pretty. So you also flip your piece over after you've, sublimated the front, and just hold your iron on it for about 10 to 15 seconds. And they say that it makes it just a little bit more vibrant. And that's all you have to do to sublimate. It's so easy. You just remember to put your picture face down, and you can't go wrong. And that's all there is to it. I needed my print to be like a 5x7 type size. So all you do is just make a small cut, and then the beautiful thing about drop cloth is when you make that cut, you can just rip it. And I ripped it down and made it more like the size of a 5x7. And then I just kind of pull my edges out a little bit because I love it when they fray. I think it's so beautiful. And I looked through my stash to figure out what I'm going to put this little lamb in. And I absolutely loved it in this picture frame. This is a 5x7 picture frame that I got for just $1 at the thrift store. But it needs to be painted. So I took the beautiful baby blue color called Prom Queen from DIY Paint. It is one of the biggest sellers. And you see why. It's just gorgeous. And I went all over this beautiful picture frame with just one coat. I took my DIY white wax and put it on this chippy brush. And I went all around this frame with that beautiful wax. And my goodness, I barely had to wipe any of it back because I absolutely loved the way that it looked. It just made that frame just pop. And it went so perfectly with that picture. So I just pulled my picture really taut and put it right back in that frame. And that's all I had to do for this DIY.
Everyone needs a shoulder to cry on. Everyone needs a helping hand. Everyone needs someone to rely on. Yes, everyone needs a friend. So let's come together, celebrate each other, stand united as one.
Hey, if you guys stuck with me through this whole video, I just want to say thank you so much for stopping in, and I'm so glad that you came and spent some time with me. I hope that you like these DIYs as much as I did. I absolutely had a blast making them, and I think they turned out so gorgeous, guys. And don't forget, please go and visit Miss Lisa, the Dollar Mom, and Miss Emily over at Farm Charm Chic. I'm going to leave that playlist down below. Go check them out. Subscribe to their channels. You're going to love them. And for those of you who didn't get to watch the video yet of the new puppy, I did put a couple of little clips of him here at the end where I was trying to go and get my work done, and he just kept yelling like somebody killed him.
because he is so spoiled and he wants to be held all the time. I'll be back on my regular schedule next week, and y'all have a blessed weekend.